Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Building Professional Pathways session, part of Hamilton Arts Council's Professional Development Series 2021. Hamilton Arts Council serves arts communities within the Greater Hamilton area, including Ancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Glanbrook, Hamilton, Stony Creek, Waterdown, and Six Nations of the Grand River. We acknowledge that this area is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which is an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg to care and share for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that the land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Hamilton Arts Council envision a dynamic arts community that is innovative, impactful, diverse, and professionally sustainable. We hope you have an opportunity to explore all of the upcoming professional development sessions between October and December in 2021, and you can find these via our website, www.hamiltonartscouncil.ca. Click Programs and then Professional Development. All sessions are free to attend and presented in partnership with the City of Hamilton's Tourism and Culture Division. So that is my little intro script. Welcome, 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 everyone. I was very nervous doing that because of the nature of today's session. I know that I have professional readers and speakers in the room. So yes, panelists, if you'd like to unmute yourself, I'm going to invite you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and even why you think you're here this evening, and let us know where you're zooming in from. Christopher, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Christopher Stanton. I'm zooming in from my home here in Hamilton. Yeah, I'm the festival director at Hamilton Fringe. I took on that position March 1st, 2020. So just in time for a lot of stuff to happen, or not happen, depending on how you're looking at it. I'm a theater maker, a musician. I'm a director, a performer, a sound designer, a lot of different things. I wear many different hats, and so I suppose one of the bits of value that I can bring to this evening's conversation is maybe, like I feel like the arc of my career is a bit longer in the tooth than maybe Aaron and Senjuti's at this point, and I've seen a sort of a bunch of different streams and sort of can speak to a bunch of different things. So it's as an artist and an arts administrator. So yeah, looking forward to tonight's conversation.
Yeah, really pleased to have you here. Senjuti.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Njiuti. I use she, her pronouns. I am joining from Hamilton as well. I'm joining in from my workplace at the Art Gallery of Hamilton. I'm so excited to be here. David, thank you so much for thinking about me for this. I feel like I do, I'll get into more about this later, but I do one of these talks every single year. Every single year, we talk about theater, we talk about arts, and I have almost the same things to say every single time, just I feel like that's the community. So I'm excited to talk more about it today. I feel like I have a little bit more perspective. In terms of my professional identity, I am mostly a theater maker, but I don't know how much of that is happening right now because of the pandemic. But I'm a designer, I'm an arts manager, I am a stage manager, I'm a producer, I am a production manager. I do so many things. I also, very similar to Chris and probably Aaron as well, and also a lot of people that are probably joining us right now that also identify as artists in Ontario. We wear a lot of hats, not just because of professional curiosity, but economic reasons. So yeah, that's what I do. I am joining in from the traditional territories of the Neutrals, the Huron-Wendat, the Erie, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River people. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Senjuti. I'm so glad that you could join us. And Aaron.
Hi, Aaron Jan, he, him pronouns. I'm coming in from what is colonially known as Toronto, but I am from Hamilton, so I'm not like a weirdo on this call. Just coming in from another city being weird. Born and raised in Hamilton. I work between both cities. I'm probably best known in Hamilton as the co-artistic leader of a group called Porchlight Theater, which just gets money and pays artists. Our big thing is we want to create a working culture of paid new play development in town, and also a working culture of paid training in town. I'm a director, I'm a playwright, I'm a dramaturg, a producer. Newly, I am suddenly an educator, which is very strange, but that's what I do. And I teach grant writing is kind of like part of my, I guess the reason why I'm here is because I'm obsessed with money. I love money. I love making money. I love spending money. I don't bathe in money, but I love finding money on the floor. So I am fascinated by how, as artists, we're able to sustain ourselves on our work, because I think it's super possible. And I want you to all buy some crazy shit. So yeah, that's why I'm on this call.
So excited about
Who let the capitalist into the conversation?
I feel so connected.
I'm so joking.
I feel so connected to you already, Aaron. So many things in there I identify with.
Yeah.
So where I want to start this evening was this idea of transitioning into professionalizing our arts practice. What's our experience been with that, and how do we use this term professional? How does that apply to us today? How do we identify as professional? Obviously, this evening we're participating in a professional development series, and so yeah, a little bit about your experience with professionalizing and what that term means to you today. Christopher, if you want to kick us off, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, David. I think Aaron, I'm joking, of course, about
No, don't joke. Call me out.
No, but that actually plays into sort of the difficulty that I have with a term like professionalism, because there is sort of this stigma that, you know, when I, and it's something that it's received knowledge for me, as opposed to something that I actually believe, that in order to be professional, you need to be paid. And in order to be professional, you have to be paid a certain amount. Like there's an amount, like if you start making the, you know, like the minimums in your sort of industry, you somehow become professional at that point. And I think that's a really exclusionary way of thinking about professionalism. I think the idea of professionalism does in and of itself sort of exclude, like it has a, and I think you're inviting this conversation, David, by pointing to it in the question itself, that the notion of who is a professional does sort of invite, I think, for, you know, like maybe people that aren't in the art, like that don't consider themselves artists, that are just sort of in the public, that hear about a professional artist. I think oftentimes the thinking would be, you know, like caviar at parties and you know, like really chic book launches and et cetera, et cetera. I think in order to, like, for me, as I've gotten as I've kind of gotten older, and sort of done a lot of work in sort of being more intentional about how I think about these things, I think about it more in terms of like, what weight does the thing have in your life, essentially? Like, if you think about it, not if your parents-in-law think about it as a hobby, but if you think about it as a hobby, then that's okay. That's all right. Like, you don't have to, like, I think some people are actually uncomfortable if, you know, like they're making a painting, or they're writing a song, or they're creating a show for the Fringe, or what have you, and you refer to them as artists. Some people actually recoil a little bit from that, which is a funny thing. But like, I think it's in some ways it's that professional quality is sort of in some ways a self-identification. It's like, how much weight do you put on it in your own life? But I think it also is sort of like, you know, it's kind of about community as well. Like where like, what do you bring to the community at large in some ways, right? And I think that professionalism, like, it's sort of shifted over time for me what that means. I know I focused very much on the word itself there, but that's sort of where my brain went.
Well, no, I really agree with you. I think, Aaron, I'm interested in your perspective, because I know from the grant writing stance, there's a lot of emphasis on identifying, are you an emerging artist? Are you established? Are you professional?
For me, a professional artist is someone who works for money. That is how I think the granting juries define it. That's how I've always defined it. Having grown up in Hamilton, I know there are so few opportunities unless you're engaged by the big house to work for money. So my goal is to work for money. So that's kind of how I've always viewed being a professional artist. It can take many forms, but I think to me, the big challenge for me is not the word, it's finding sustainable ways of paying yourself.
Yes.
So you're not solely relying on box office, because I think that's a bit of a problem with a lot of theater communities, but especially in Hamilton, with a bunch of independent artists really relying on their box office. And as we're finding out in this pandemic, right? Like, no one wants to pay for online theater. Or if they do, it's not going to be a lot of money. We all did Fringe. We know how that went. So I think like I'm really big on that, because I kind of want, my entire professional career has kind of been, okay, how can I pay myself and my teams a living wage? So that's kind of where I'm sitting with that.
No, that's useful, because I'm going to come back to you in a second and we're going to talk about what sustainable means. But Senjuti, professionalism or professional, how's that for you?
It's a combination of both what Aaron and Chris said. It's about self-identification, but also it's about that complex relationship with money. Like how do I engage? Professionalism is essentially like, how do I identify as a capitalist? That's exactly what it is. Like, how do I identify, or like, how do I contribute to capitalism? And professionalism, in my opinion, the term itself, I have a lot of thoughts about professionalism, and then also like qualifying yourself as an emerging artist, or that like huge disparity that we have. It's a very colonial term because it's made up by the structure. It's made up by the system that's like oppressing all these people again but again, it's complicated. It's very complicated because I agree with Aaron. In Hamilton, we have this huge indie culture where we like break even every single time when we do a performance. There's very little resources and allocation of money that is going towards that. But at the same time, we have all these big houses like Theatre Aquarius and some other places at McMaster, again, like those professional artists that can contribute to more and more to those resources, that can actually take advantage of those resources. So it's a complicated thing. I feel like it gatekeeps. It's definitely kept people away from this profession for a really long time. Like not profession, I should say rather sector, for a really long time, this idea of professionalism. That's how I feel about that. But at the same time, I strongly agree. If people are starting their practice, just call yourself professional artist, because you are. Like, it's about that self-identification. And in order to get into the system that is not, again, made up for people like us, people who are like living in a lot of intersections of oppression, you have to give yourself that credit rather than waiting for the system to give yourself that credit.
I'm already enjoying the fact that you guys are dispelling this myth that in order to be professional, you already have to be being sustainable in your practice, which is sort of leads us into this second term. So sustainable. I know that as a working for Hamilton Arts Council, we talk about sustainable careers in the arts. I myself am a dancer and a choreographer, but I also just so happen to live with someone married to someone who has a proper job, and therefore my life is sustainable and as well working in arts administration. So Aaron, sustainability, when we talk about that in relation to careers in the arts or arts practice, what does that mean for you?
Sustainability, I mean, this is probably a really vanilla thing, but I'm just going to say it anyway, is not relying on your box office. I know that's like, I'm going to keep saying that over and over again, but it's a problem in Hamilton where we think we can survive purely on our ticket sales. Like, no company in the world, aside from for-profit theaters, are only surviving on their box office. Sustainable funding for me is securing recurring relationships, yes, with granting bodies and winning project funding, but also developing like a strong donor base and a strong support network that you can reach out and find resources with. For me, what makes my practice quote unquote sustainable is I've gotten very good at grant writing. So it's just figuring out like what to apply for and how to apply for it, but also looking at it in like a longer time frame. Because I think, especially as indie artists, we have such a knee-jerk reaction. We're like, oh shit, Kat Sandler put something up in 2 weeks. I have to put something up in 1 week. Like, we can take our time if we actually are able to secure that funding and produce that project 2 years down the line. That will ultimately be a stronger project than when we knee-jerk and put up immediately. So I think part of what makes a practice sustainable is realistically looking at what you can achieve to its maximum potential and accruing resources over time to actually realize that. Yeah.
I love the term that you used in there, recurring relationships, and that really resonates with me in terms of sustainability. Christopher?
Yeah, it's a funny thing because when I graduated from I graduated from the University of Alberta in Edmonton, and it was about 2001, I think. I think it was 2001, around there. And the sort of the idea of at that point, the idea of grants was not in my brain at all. It was just sort of I'll do fringe shows and like Aaron's saying, rely on the box office, and maybe we can, if I make sure that it's only a 1 or 2 person show, then we'll make more money. And that thinking, that sort of that mindset of scarcity was beaten into us early and often, in school, in sort of that you should be proud of or happy to be here, that you're fortunate to be making art. You should, I used to say all the time how grateful I am to be able to sort of be trying to make a living out of the voices in my head. So I mean, and I still have that gratitude, but the problem is that mindset of scarcity, it gets internalized and then it gets institutionalized. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Laura Paddock was, who is now the general manager at the Fringe in Toronto. She and I worked together with a company in Toronto, a theater company. I was the artistic producer, and she was our general manager there for a company called ARC. They do great work. Go see whatever they do. But there was a conversation that we were having in about 2019, and we were talking about, we need, an associate or an assistant stage manager. And we had before Laura came in, we had budgeted $200 a week, I think, for the assistant stage manager for a period of 3 weeks. And that is the kind of job that I did early on. I would do that for $200 a week and be grateful for it. It was probably less back in the early aughts, but and I remember getting the budget and sharing it with Laura, and she said, "What is going on here with the ASM?" And I said, "Well, it's $200 a week. We bumped it up from 175 or something." And she said, "Okay, do you know anyone that can live on $200 a week?" And I was like, "Well, no, but I mean, that's what it pays." And she very clearly, it was kind of one of those shaking you out of your paradigms moments where she just said, just because that's how you lived doesn't mean it's how everybody else has to live. You should just because your expectations were so low doesn't mean that that's how it should be forever. And when you're in a position to change that, which again, gratefully, I do have the privilege of being in a position where, as the festival director of the Fringe, we have resources that we can, actually help to sort of get out of this mindset of scarcity, despite the fact that it feels like scarcity is the name of the game right now in this moment. But certainly in terms of expectations and what it means to sort of cut your teeth young, I'd say that was one of the things that I think is really exciting that's changing right now. And that I would encourage young artists to continue self-advocating vocally for changes in terms of remuneration and being properly valued for your work.
There's an idea around, or a concept around this gratitude that's supposed to fill a lot of the the vacuum that's happening around earning proper money. Senjuti, what has been your experience with that balance between your desire to perform or create or be artistic, just because you so desperately want to do that, versus actually creating opportunities for earning money at it, making unique opportunities for people to come and experience your work. We hear it all the time. Oh, you must do it because you love it. Well, I wonder what your experience has been with that.
I'm going to tell you this straight up and truthfully. I stopped designing because I can't make enough money out of it. But I'm a designer. I'm a lighting designer. I don't want to do anything else. I never wanted to do anything else, but I had to teach myself how to be an arts manager because that's the sustainable way of doing things. Also, I used to be a freelance worker and I made shit money out of it. Like, I literally made no money. I was living in my parents' house because, again, educationally speaking, and I feel like, again, this is like, if everybody's committed to an objective, if Aaron is committed to making money and Chris is committed to identity, I'm committed to attacking the system. I am tired of just like these organizations and like educational systems that don't teach us that freelance workers need to manage their own money. They need to learn how to pay CPP. They need to learn how to manage their own pension so they can have a life after they finish work, or because in this province it's so difficult to live in. And the reason that I say in this province, because I just came back from Quebec, life is very different over there. I mean, it's very, very, very different over there. People are happy. People can have one serving job and they will be fine. In Ontario, that's unheard of. It's unheard of. So that's the reason that I say province. But I feel like in general, in Turtle Island, we're messed up. We're messed up in this entire like part of this world in terms of how money is funded and fueled to these, because we're all taking money from the same broken bank that people just keep putting in money for like maybe a couple of years, and then we run out of money, and it's all frustrating. So I feel like, to bring it back, to balance it out, I've had to literally give up and wait for my turn to be a designer again, so I can live in the middle. And I've had to find something else that I love. It's not that I don't love what I do. I love the stuff that I do at the AGH or with my advocacy work. I'm a community worker. I am an outreach worker. I love working for my communities. Like, aside from anybody who knows me, aside from my design work, they mostly know me by my advocacy work and just like my loudness in general. And I love that. I love that in general. But I've had to find ways to love it. This was not my first choice. So I feel like it really is, when I feel like I'm hearing a lot of us talk a lot of this ownership on ourselves, that this is what we need to do. Even this professional development is being offered to artists, and it's being offered to workers. And the people who end up taking that offer are the artists and the workers. The organizations, like, where are the cultural leaders? The big ones in this chat, where are they? They're not here. They're not listening. So it's just, we need to, if I can continue from what Chris said about being loud about advocacy, about getting money, people also need to start getting loud about who is at fault and who is the one who's taking advantage of all these things. So if you see something and you see that this organization is really lacking on this stuff, I encourage you, in fact, email me. I will help you to try and call people out and like bring people in, because it's 2021. I can't deal with the fact people, and today I was in a conversation with another artist. I feel like I'm going all over the place. It's just been one of those days. And I feel like I'm one of those months in general where I'm talking about just all these endless things, because I feel like the year is coming to an end and it's still somehow the same year like 2020. And I'm sorry if that is like triggering to some people. I'm really, really, really sorry. It's particularly triggering to me because it's been the same. And there's this artist. I have a lot of beef with CARFAC rates, by the way. So CARFAC rates are just like generalized rates for arts organizations to pay their artists and artist educators. And all galleries and all organizations follow that, except CARFAC rates are quite horrible. Like, they're day rates. They pay you very little money for prep work. So I actually had an artist today tell me that apparently those rates are so generous. So what are people getting paid? So it's just, all of these people, there's a huge gap between organizations and communities. Now, organizations are trying to keep their doors open. I totally understand that. But that communication needs to happen again. They need to start serving those communities again. Like, the reason with how they started is for not-for-profit. So I think the balance is really just like, to bring it back to your question, David, I feel like the balance is a combination of of advocacy and just like owning up to what's wrong and like actually saying that this is wrong.
I think one of the points that you brought up, referring to CARFAC, is actually something that we will cycle back to, and that's looking at what are those benchmarks, what are those what services or resources should or could people be looking at today, and also I just want to acknowledge how much value there has been in these conversations already in my position, being able to feed this information back up into the organization, because we're talking about lived experience. So I really appreciate the honesty with which you're sharing with us. I want to, Aaron, talk a little bit about maybe any experience you've had with learning to benchmark your rate of pay, maybe situations that you've had where you've actually turned work down. It's a daunting challenge that faces many, I'll use the term, emerging artists or people who are just learning to establish themselves. And I wonder if you could share with us any experience that you have around that.
Sure. My first thing is, what am I getting out of this? Even if the work is free, what am I getting from this experience? I shadowed a Mervish show, Next to Normal, a few years ago. I did the gig for free because I knew I would learn how to fit a musical theater room worked. And I really admired that director. So to me, that like cost, there's those three things, right? What, Chris and Judy, what are these things? It's like cost, something.
Kicks, kudos, cash. This isn't mine. This is Ravi Jane's.
Please take it.
Kicks,
Yes.
kudos, cash.
Can you define those terms, Chris?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Ravi Jain told this to me once ages ago. Ravi's the artistic director at Why Not Theatre in Toronto, and just like a great thinker, great educator, great artist, lovely human being. And he said that he won't take a gig. I mean, this was more about when he was still gigging, but he wouldn't take a gig unless it satisfied one or two of those three, like check two of those three boxes. One was kicks, which is like, do I like the people that I'm hanging out with? Is it going to be fun? Like, is it going to be something that energizes me, gives me some kind of joy? Kudos is like, is it good for my professional development in some way? Is there a chance I might be like eligible for award? Is it prestigious in some strange way? And then cash is cash. It's cash.
Mm-hmm. I will say too, if my rate for things drastically increases, if I'm not going to have a good time on the project, I hike my rate up. And then if they still hire me, which sometimes they do, suckers, I'll take the gig. I can think of many gigs in this last year I've taken where I've jacked up the price because I was like, I hate this, but this is going to get me money. So yeah, I think I look at those three things actually quite critically, because I need to figure out, like, is this actually serving me in my practice? There's no shame in working for free if you're getting something out of it. You know, I mean, like, if you're like maybe 5 Fringe shows deep, maybe we have some talking to do and we have some serious questions. But like, if you're getting something truly powerful that is advancing your own practice and advancing your own development, and it's a rockin' time, then maybe it's worth it. But like, I think I tend to say no to gigs when I get that feeling in my stomach where it's like, do I dread this? And that actually beats out the 3Ks. Like if this pays really well and gives me advancement, but in my heart of hearts, I'm like, oh no, this is bad. Oh no, then I need to get out. It doesn't matter what it pays. I learned this. Never distrust your job. I learned this the hard way. I'm not going to say which company this is, but I worked with a very large organization a few years ago. Really well paying gig, a terrible experience. It's like when you cast someone, right? It doesn't matter if they have Stratford or Broadway credits. If they're a dick, they're a dick. So like, to me, it's that sense that causes me to reject things. It's that, do I dread this, or is this underpaying me? So that's kind of where I draw the line. And I think I learned that kind of like by doing a lot of gigs that I dreaded, and doing a lot of gigs that I hated, and doing a lot of gigs that ultimately were not rewarding, but were a lot of labor. In terms of my minimum rates, it's different because like I also do dramaturgy and there's no real set rates on that. So I actually kind of equate it at $5 more than what I used to make at my Joe job. So I'm like, this art thing needs to pay me more hourly than my Joe job used to pay me. And that is how I decided my bench rates when people asked me what my hourly was. And now I actually have a greater sense of what I'm worth because I've done it for a bit. But to me, like, obviously there are all sorts of agreements to go on, but if there's no union agreement to really look at, maybe think about what you're doing in that job you hate, how much you get paid, and then try to increase it for your artistic wage or equal it. Because the ultimate, I mean, like, obviously the ultimate goal is for us to not work a Joe job anymore. But like, if you're working an arts job and someone asks you your rate, equal or increase how much you make on your Joe job per hour. That is, to me, how I determine the benchmark for things. And of course, it goes up if I don't like you, and if I do like you, it might go down. But my benchmark used to be just like, here's my rate, and the flexibility is how much I like you.
I appreciate that. Senjuti, posting in the chat, trust your gut. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I feel like as human beings, we're all blessed with so much agency within our body. Never distrust your gut. Every single time I have distrusted my intuition, I have ended up in the shit, like literally. Yep. I have literally ended up in the worst position ever. But I feel like there's one thing that I need to address. I'm very lucky and very privileged with my personality as an extrovert, and also just my skills that are so vast and like so not like that could be transferred into a lot of things. I did a lot of things in my like last couple of years of professional identity. But that also doesn't mean, like, for anybody who's watching, anybody who's going to watch is feeling like, yeah, all the KKCs, if you don't get it, but do I not want that job? Life is really difficult right now, especially in pandemic. Work is hard to get. So I feel like if you have to take a position, if you have to take a contract that is just going to put you through it and you get the feeling of it, just stay critical about it. Stay critical and take lessons. I feel like the only thing that you could do if you're not getting anything out of it, nothing, absolutely nothing out of it, but just like plain cash, but like your life is shit, just stay critical. Stay critical about, and also tell your friends about that, because the chances are they're probably exploiting somebody else at the same time. So tell your friends and tell the people that you work with that is an organization with bad behavior and bad, like, not great working environment. You have to be kind to each other. So I think it's like, it brings it back all to like this like innate sense of community, that trusting yourself and trusting any like others at the same time, and trusting on your abilities, that you are able to take this away from, but also at the same time understanding the complexity, and if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. That idea of community, building the community that you crave, and in that community, developing the language, the conversation, the vocabulary to talk about race, to talk about worth, to talk what are you charging? This is what I charge. This is what I build it upon. Because the system is set up to be competitive, that we're in competition with each other, and so it almost works entirely against that idea. But the value that you're articulating is right there in communicating and pulling together as an arts community. Christopher, I wanted to ask you and the rest of the panelists about investment in your development. So what are important investments that you've made in your own development, maybe since any formal training or anything like that, or your ongoing development as an artist? What are the important investments, whether they're financial or whether they're emotional, spiritual, whatever that looks like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the thing that I immediately comes to my mind when I think of like how my career has developed over the years, and what the most important aspect of like what the most important investment has been, is just like working. You know, to be totally honest, it's getting out there and, you know, like I've worn and continue to wear many different hats in the arts and arts administrative world. And what's been most important to my career development has been the breadth of the work that I've taken on. So I feel like finding people, like taking jobs that that put me in the same room and the same on the same team as people that I respect and enjoy working with and want to learn from. Like I've learned so much from just being in rooms with like directors like Philip Aiken, right? Like just like doing a sound design for Philip Aiken is a schooling in directing. Like it's an incredible, and just how to run a room, like just with empathy and love and support. And he still gets on top of the desk and waves his scabbard at the system like while he's doing that. So it's like, it's beautiful. He's so punk rock. I fucking love him. Sorry. I don't know. Now I'm all punk rock all of a sudden. You can take that out in the.
I'll learn how to find my beat button in the recording.
Yeah, totally.
Very exciting adventure I've got ahead of me. Thank you for that.
But I think like just to put a bow on what I'm saying, David, so it's about sort of like exposing yourself to people that maybe you like, people that are working in different ways, working in different fields. Like, so when I like at this point in my life, like when I'm directing or while I'm festival like project managing at the Fringe, I understand and can empathize actively and know what people are going through because I've either done the job or have been like right alongside that job. So I sort of know, like my expectations of a human being are realistic expectations, like I understand what you're going through because I've kind of been there. And, like, so from sort of like an arts administrator perspective, like I've done so many of these things and continue to do so many of these things that it's very hard for me to separate myself from them in any meaningful way. That it actually, like, I think it creates for me, it creates a greater sense of community.
Gosh, you just really got me thinking about the humanity of what you're describing. I really appreciate that. Aaron, things that you have, skills that you've had to develop along the way, or what would have been most beneficial for you to know earlier in your career?
I'm gonna sound like I'm beating a dead horse. Grant writing. Honestly, that has saved my bacon so many times of being like, oh, this project, wow, this could look like shit, or I could try to like win $40,000. And I got good at that skill super early, and that changed the game for me. Also, knowing that hiring a producer is really important, that if you are a director on a project, you probably shouldn't double as a producer because you'll lose your mind. Also, if you don't have knowledge, hire someone who does. I'm bad at marketing. Oh my God, I am terrible at marketing. I don't know how to get people to my stuff, but a marketing agency might, a producer might. Other things I wish I learned. I'm just going to throw out my treasure trove of Chinese knowledge. Only work with people who make you feel good about yourself. I think that to me is really important. I spent so much time in my earlier career trying to court people who didn't want to be around me. And that is, I mean, I'm a pretty repulsive person, so I understand why they don't want to be around me. But yeah, like people who challenge you, sure, but people who like believe in your artistry, those are the people you want to run with. Those are the mentors you want to run with. Those are the teachers you want to run with. If any of your mentors or teachers or collaborators make you feel like crap consistently, get rid of them. Because not only will they inhibit your own like career, because they might inhibit your career. Where did that sentence come from? Not only will they inhibit your career, but they will also inhibit your artistry and also inhibit your ability to generate resources for yourself, because you have to like babysit them in the back of your mind. So the long and short of it is grant writing. The long also and short of it is also ride with people who support you and believe in you, and know that if you don't have the answers, seek out someone who does, because they're out there. If you admire an artist and you want to learn about their shit, message them, reach out to them.
Yeah.
That's how I've gotten everything in my career. I was like, hey, oh my God, like I love your shit. And then we sat and we talked and we jammed. And then it was always like, how can I learn from you? How can I do this? And I was able to take their skills and force them into my body. So I became a stronger man. Yes. Someone please take this over from me.
Some sort of symbiont being. I'm not quite sure where that was
I
going.
consumed
We
their
should
power.
probably be alerting the government about this or something.
I'm like Kirby. I will take your powers. Please ask someone else a question and get me out
For
of this
sure.
hell.
I will say that Aaron has brought up two items that are still yet to come up in professional development. We actually have grant writing with the programs officer from Canada Council, as well as marketing, social media and marketing for artists, and that's coming up on November 4th, I think. Check the website for getting a registration for that. Senjuti, things that you wish you knew then that you know now, or that would have been beneficial to know?
I really wish I knew how to talk to people from the very beginning, because I have literally only ever gotten where I have by talking to people. I am shameless when it comes to networking. I am shameless when it comes to introducing myself now, but I wasn't like this. It's this imposter syndrome ever since I was at school, because I went to McMaster. I didn't learn how to be a vocational like a designer, or like I didn't learn how to, I didn't even do this. I didn't even do that. I literally didn't even do this. I just learned how to be an academic. I learned how to care about communities in an academic way from a scholarship position, but I did not learn, there's a huge divide between the academic world, the scholarly communities, and the actual world where people do the work. So these are all like both echo chambers. So that imposter syndrome had just stayed with me. And I felt like it took me up until, I think, 2 years into me being a freelance worker, calling myself an artist. I didn't even, so it's like a whole bunch of these things. So I feel like I really just like had gotten, I had just had a longer conversation with myself about what my identity is and what are the things that are important to me and what are my strengths. So my strength is definitely in people. I like will die on that hill. That is probably the only strength that I can bank behind, that I like really strongly have right now. And I really wish that I had known about this, because that defines, it's not just about what you need to get out of these things. You also, what you need for yourself, for you to get where you want to go, if that makes sense. It's a weirdly cyclical way for me to basically say that, whatever your strengths are and whatever you actually enjoy doing is probably what you want to be doing for a big part of your life. So me recognizing my strength is in people and it's in networking, it made me a stronger community worker, and it made me a stronger arts manager, and it made me a stronger production manager. And literally I take all of those skills and I put it away to like different contracts I go into. So it's not just what I get out of those things and what I need, it's also about how far I want to go with those things.
I just there's so much emphasis that all three of you are making around community and collaboration and connection and the value of that. And so I want to move into just touching on the fact that municipal, provincial, and federal funding structures are competitive, and how that sits in direct conflict with what it is that the three of you are talking about has such value. And maybe Aaron, you can kick us off by talking about, you know, how do we become competitive as an artist or an arts presenter?
I am the most competitive person. I love beating people. It's my favorite thing in the world. Before I go into a big diatribe about how to beat other people, I will emphasize something I forgot to add to what I said earlier. Don't be a jerk. It's so easy when you're in the arts to be a jerk and talk crap about people behind their backs. It's cool, it's fun, but like nobody wants that person. Be generous. If you love someone's work, reach out to them, talk to them, be excited about each other, be nice to each other, because I see it in every single community, Hamilton, Toronto, Stratford, wherever I go. There's the people who are generous, genuinely generous, not like fake generous. They always stand out because like you want those people to roll with you. Okay, being competitive. Let's talk about not being mean, but winning. I always say this to my grant writing students and anyone who wants to write a grant. Why here? Why now? Why must your project happen at this political moment, in this geographic location, at this time in your career? You're writing a Me Too play. Amazing, wonderful work. What makes your Me Too play different from your own unique, exciting perspective? We are all storytellers. Every single person in the Zoom chat, every single person around the world has told a story. So we are capable of telling stories. All of our work is valid, but fight for its validity by proving how cool, how unique, and how urgent it is. It's competitive when you blend into the crowd. You start to win at being competitive when you fight for the uniqueness of your project based on your own personal artistry. I think there is a big divide between making important work and important work that you have a stake in. So I will always encourage when folks write grants or apply for funding or pitch a project, where are you in this work? Like how, yeah, you're doing Hamlet, whatever. How do you connect to Hamlet? And what makes your production of Hamlet unique and necessary now? That to me is how you beat the competitive game. And also, like, to me, grants are storytelling, and applying for funding is storytelling. You're trying to excite a jury by getting them interested and invested in the story of why this play needs to happen. You're like a pirate. You're like a pirate who knows where treasure is. And you're like, guys, girls, non-binary folk, I know where the treasure is. Come on my ship. This ship will not sink. I am a very good captain. Let's roll. That's how you win, in my opinion. And it should be exciting. Sponsorship packages, fundraising, reaching out to donors, you're communicating narrative, and you're getting people excited in your narrative and how you fight for your art and the impact it has on communities.
Beautiful. Christopher, you look like someone who broods deeply about how to take down other people. And
I am cutthroat, David. Is it David? Am I saying that right? Yeah, no, first of all, I feel like I should apologize for Aaron going off on the pirate euphemism. My 9-year-old daughter was downstairs listening to sea shanties before we got started tonight. Yeah, I feel like it somehow infected the Zoom room, and I'm sorry for everyone, Aaron included.
Yar.
Yar. No, but to take your point, David, like it's funny because one of the it's this weird thing, right? Where the reason, like when I started out as an artist, like I wouldn't have called myself an artist, but I was like in a band. We were, rehearsing in my parents' garage. Like it was like.
What did you play? What did you play?
There's probably one in the background. Yeah, the guitar, mostly guitar.
Look at you! Wow.
Yeah. This is a highly curated frame to make me seem way cooler than I am. No, in real life though. And we used to say, like in the band, we used to have this thing where it was like, it's not about you. It's not about what you're playing. It's the song. What does the song need? That's what you got to think. And that way of thinking turned into a collaborative practice for theater for me, where I was doing a lot of devised work, a lot of sort of like collective creation in a bunch of different ways. It's how I met a bunch of people that I was like, that sort of, we were kind of like coming up in the scene together in the early aughts in Toronto. And to me, the thing that drew me to music, the thing that draws me to theater, the thing that draws me to arts administration, to be perfectly frank, is the community aspect. It is that sense of there's something like the best projects I've ever worked on are the ones where you start to forget whose idea was what. And it's just like, oh shit, it works so well. How did we get here? That idea, the sort of like the emergence that comes out of the multiple moving parts. There's something else that's greater than the sum of its parts. So for me, that community aspect is really at the heart of it. And that I would say, to sort of like circle it back to the grant question, David, I would say that I would not necessarily push back on, but challenge the question a little bit, in terms of like, I feel like we're in a transitional period right now with the way that granting is structured. I would say that, well, I mean, like, yeah, we can have another conversation about the city enrichment fund and the difficulties in trying to get that.
Oh, I hope don't cut
We'll talk
that.
about it later.
Don't
You're
cut that.
lovely people,
Do
lovely
not
people. But
get into this.
Yeah. No, I won't get into that. So, but provincially and federally, and particularly federally, I would say provincially, like unfortunately, because there's been a lot of funding cuts in the last few years, they're having difficulty even like supporting people that they've already been supporting. So it's like there's a real problem provincially, but federally there is a very concerted movement towards community building and partnerships in grants. Like, who is it that you're bringing on board? Like it's like the artistic merit of the project is one aspect. The other thing is the impact of the thing on your community, on you, on the artists that you're employing, on the community partners maybe that you're bringing in to to be part of this thing. Like, so there really does seem to be a concerted move, and it's slow, but there is a concerted move, I think, to create a system that rewards collaboration and sort of like all boats rising in the granting world.
Yes, I agree with a lot of what you said. Before I come to Senjuti and ask about your experience with those structures, I do want to recognize that that following this session, everyone who has registered for the session, in your email link to the video, I will check with the panelists and get their contact information, whatever they're willing to share with you, so that if you're interested in following up with any of them individually, you can do so. Senjuti, funding structures, competitive funding structures, and granting.
I denounce competition. I, as a person in general, I just cannot. I feel like I used to be an extremely competitive person when I first started in this industry, very competitive. And then I became really good at it. I became really good at getting the jobs because I was just so good at talking about my skills. But I feel like, especially after the pandemic, I denounce every legacy of competition. I cannot. It's just, and also it's. I think, again, it's competition, the idea of scarcity. We've talked about this for the night. It's all about, Aaron, what are you saying? Sorry, I just got so distracted. Okay, so I feel like competitiveness, or like this idea of scarcity, that we only, again, I brought up this metaphor of this being a broken bank. And I was talking exactly about what you asked, David, the municipal and the federal funding system. It's a broken bank. It's not just competitive, it's like equally broken. It's inaccessible. It does not know how to assess impact the way that we assess impact, because there's a huge divide between professionalism and community work. And those both have drastically different impact in the world, in its communities, and in its ether in general. And I feel like granting bodies just have not yet figured out how to assess that impact yet. And it's 2021. And I know that I totally recognize, I understand what Chris is saying about this facade being lifted. This barrier is slowly getting taken away, but there shouldn't have been a barrier in the first place. Yep. This should not have been so difficult to get.
Agreed.
So I feel like one of the things, and I will quote one of my favorite mentors of all time, Nellie Aquino from Factory Theatre in Toronto. She told me once, if you want to make shit happen, you have to get inside the building where they make shit happen. So one of the things that I feel like what we need to do, a lot of these cultural leaders, a lot of these arts administrators, actually, I don't want to say cultural leaders because they're leaders. They should be trained in these things, and they are. They just decide not to do anything about it. But a lot of arts administrators, a lot of arts managers are not trained in cultural policy. They are not trained to lobby for this broken bank to be diminished altogether. They're not trained. They're not empowered. They're not given that agency. So I think I want to twist this question, and I want to get rid of it. I want to get rid of this idea of competition in the community. And I want to just encourage people to actually start getting into the other banks and actually banks in general. I hate banks. I can't stand them. But so the idea of this area where we take money from, this needs to go away. It needs to go away, and it needs to be much more accessible. That's my experience and my long rant of steam power. I've been doing this for a while.
It wasn't long. It was fantastic and impassioned, and I love it. And I also started thinking about you hoarding your money under your mattress, like.
Yeah.
Not money, shark teeth.
Literally.
They will come in handy eventually.
So
that's
as we are drawing to a close, I want to come to each of you and to offer up the resources or reference points that you would guide people to look towards specifically. I mean, Aaron, when we're writing grant applications and you're putting together those, trying to do the sums and trying to figure out how much the different parts cost, what are your reference points for that? What valuable memberships or unions or whatever you want to call it should people be exploring or educating themselves around?
Well, first things first, I put this in the chat. I do freelance grant consulting at affordable rates. I won't write the grant for you, but I'll look at your draft and we can talk through it. So I am a resource. I've won a bunch of grants since graduating from theater school a bunch of years ago. I can't guarantee you'll win, but I'm pretty good at writing them, so I can help you out. You should familiarize yourself with the Actors Equity website and the Associate Designers of Canada website, so you can find out what the minimum wages to pay people are. If you need help navigating through those, I'm your guy. Because also those spreadsheets are very confusing. When I opened the spreadsheet, I screamed the first time and closed it. But familiarize yourself with standard rates and union standards, because even you're hiring non-union actors, engaging people at those minimums, to me, that is a first step in being like, okay, I am a freelancer, yes, but this is a goal I want to pay people at. So I would say that's a first great resource. Artist producer resource. I'm a graduate of Generator's producer training program. Artistproducerresource.com has so many resources. If you're confused about anything, I am confused all the time. I go on that site. So I would say, look at Generator TO, Artist Producer Resource, to help you out. Familiarize yourself with equity contracts, and then just contact me. I want to help you. The city, artists in the city should be winning funding every 5 seconds. Let's navigate this together. Let's win. So send me an email. Let's do this.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Christopher.
Yeah, Generator was on my my list too, Aaron. I think they're a great organization for young artists who want to, young theater makers who want to, like that are at any stage in their career and any part of the practice. It just they have incredible skill at offering mentorship or support, or being able to hook you up with somebody that has answers to the questions that you have. So many of the people that I know that are, you know, like really making waves as independent artists right now in theater are graduates of the Generator of Generator. So it's like it's fantastic stuff. So do definitely use them. In terms of you know, like we, you know, like the people on this panel, me as the festival director, I know anybody on the Fringe staff, like we're all approachable. Like ask me anything. I'm happy to go out and grab a coffee in real life with a mask, or you know, like I've actually started doing like coffees inside occasionally. But like I'm happy to do that. I will talk to you about whatever you want. I'll try to answer your questions, and if I don't have the answers, I might know somebody who does. You know, whether it's just about career or about art or whatever it is, you know, like we're around. So do like that. This is a long walk to get to. Talk to people. Just talk to people. Like it's weird. And I am not like, I mean, Senjuti, like, you know, we're goofy and loud and stuff. I am definitely less like Senjuti in terms of like my ability to network. No, we start like poor David, when we got on together, it was like 15 minutes before he was like, so hi, I'm David.
There's a moment.
Like, just to say, I'm lousy at networking. I'm crap at it. I get terrified easily about the notion of meeting people that I think might, you know, maybe they won't like me, maybe they'll. But honestly, like every time that I've put myself out there and just said, hey, do you mind if we have a chat, or do you have time for a phone call, or do you like every time it's yielded something beautiful. Like either an ongoing relationship that is like an actual like working relationship, or some nugget of wisdom that I've been able to take forward, or that's not me, but who you do need to talk to is this. And like just getting that first step actually goes a long way, you know. And it's just nice to know that you're not working in an abyss. You're not just grinding away yourself, you know. Like everybody in this thing has questions. Everybody is unsure. Everybody feels like they're in a precarious position, even the people in the big houses. So I mean, like, we share more than we don't. So there is like a place to start from for, I think, everybody. And the other thing, just to sort of like continue on, sort of piggybacking on what Aaron's talking about, one of the most valuable things that I did early on in my grant writing was to, like, they say, if it's your first grant, call the grant officer. Yep. Call the grant officer. Like, that's what they're there for. There is it, like, on every grant page, there's like, do you want to speak to a granting officer? Here's the email. Use the email. Call the granting officer, have a conversation. See, like, as you talk through the project that you're excited about, it will start to make more sense to you. It will start to make more sense as you write the grant. You get more excited about it. Like, that's a super important thing. And get feedback when you can. If you don't get the grant, ask for feedback, because it will help you immensely on the next time.
Also, if you win the grant, ask for feedback. Because that's the only way you know.
That's true too. I never do that, but that's true. That is true.
Chris, get better, Chris.
Yeah, interesting. Senjuti.
I feel like my resources to offer is people. I have learned everything that I have learned from other people. Get to know your community organizations. If there are people that are going to be watching this and are watching this that are not from Hamilton, get to know people that are part of your city's community organizations. Have just like a quick Google search about their mission and vision statement, because as not-for-profit, they are supposed to have that information out there. So if that aligns with your philosophy and what you want to be doing, just send them an email. I have made my theater career, and I've literally made it happen from Hamilton Fringe. I started out at Hamilton Fringe as a venue technician, and I literally escaped and ran away from theater to go get a master's, and then come back crying to Claire and Heather at Hamilton Fringe to give me a job again. Literally, it's about that. It's about having those connections. Yeah, if you're laughing at my sadness, because that's exactly what happened to me. You can call Heather.
I'm laughing.
Will tell you.
I'm laughing at your sadness.
No, I'm not laughing at your sadness. I'm laughing because it's true, because we love you. That's why. I'm laughing because it's like, Senjuti, we would have you anytime.
I'm so glad, because I would never have me anytime. But it's just, you have to talk. It's just, you have to talk to people. But then if you don't want to talk to people, come and talk to me. I will talk to them for you. I'm so serious about this. Like, I am very, very, very open and just like so excited and eager to talk to people. If there's at any point, anybody again who comes across this recording and is now part of the recording, if Aaron is helping out with grant writing, Chris is going to help out with some more networks, even though he's bad at it. I'm going to help you out with people and like talking to people. I would love to help you out with that. But it really is that. You have to talk to people, and it's about aligning your philosophy from a very early stage. It's okay for it to be changing, because as artists, as creatives, as people, we change all the time. But it's good to start aligning your philosophies and your artistic philosophies with the organizations that you actually truly care about and how you want to make your impact in the community. So just talk to people. And they're there to help you. They're so fun. They're there to help you.
Thank you so much to the three of you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope that anyone who has joined us this evening or listening to the recorded session, I hope that you follow up with the rest of the professional development series and contact me via email, David, or community@hamiltonartscouncil.ca, and I will put you in touch with one of these lovely people if you're looking to make a connection in the community. Again, to the three of you, yes, Christopher, you're about to yell.
I just stuck my email in the chat.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so again, thank you so much, and take care.